Hey there and welcome over here today. I have a new Crockpot video to show you, and this one is extra fun and extra sweet because it is Crockpot desserts. And oh my goodness, these Crockpot desserts are going to knock your socks off. They're going to freak you out because they are that delicious. They are just so good. But when I was growing up, my mom used to make Crockpot desserts occasionally, so that is what gave me the idea to film this and show you. But I hope you guys are all doing well and staying safe, and if you are new here, I'd love to have you over at my channel, so go ahead and subscribe down below the video. But let's get to my kitchen and start making some Crockpot desserts. To get us started off, we're going to be making this Crockpot banana cake, and to be honest with you, I am not the biggest fan of bananas, but I absolutely loved this cake. I think it's a must try. So I'm just starting out by chopping up a half a cup of pecans. I have 3 bananas right here, so now I'm just going to peel them and mash them in this smaller sized bowl. Now we're going to be working on the cake part of this. You're going to need 1 box of yellow cake mix. You're just going to follow the instructions on the back of the cake mix at this point. So you're going to just be adding in your oil, your water, and your eggs. Every cake mix is a little bit different, so just follow the back of the box of your cake mix and you will be golden. With my electric mixer, or you could use a whisk or a large spoon, I'm just mixing this all together so it is no longer clumpy. Now we're really going to amp up this boring old yellow cake mix. So I just added in a half a teaspoon of ground cinnamon along with our bananas. And once again, I'm just going to mix all of these ingredients together. Now that we mix those ingredients together, I'm just going to be adding in our pecans. Then I'm just going to fold all of this together with my large spoon. The reason I'm not mixing it together with my electric mixer is because electric mixers tend to break up nuts in your batter. Over here to my crock pot, I cut out a piece of parchment paper that would fit on the very bottom of my crock pot just to help it so it doesn't stick. And now I'm just going to spray this entire thing with some nonstick spray. You definitely want to do that or else this is going to stick to your crock pot. I just added our mixture in and I'm going to be cooking this on low for about 4 hours in my crock pot or until it is completely cooked. Once my cake was completely cooked and cooled, I started to work on the frosting. The frosting's definitely optional, but hello, everybody needs some frosting. So all this frosting is to start is 1 8-ounce block of cream cheese at room temperature, along with a half a cup of butter, also at room temperature. I just creamed that together in my electric mixer, and then I added a little pinch of salt, along with a half a teaspoon of some vanilla extract. Next, I'm just adding my 2.5 cups of powdered sugar. I did add the powdered sugar in a little bit at a time, tasting it to see if it needed more. It is now time to frost our cake. I do want to mention my crock pot is totally cooled down at this point. You do want to make sure your crock pot is completely cooled or else your frosting will melt. So I just added our frosting right on top along with some sliced bananas. Of course, the sliced bananas are just for looks, you know, to make it pretty. I also added some Nilla wafers on top and some more crushed up pecans to make it look nice. And here it is. This cake is definitely one for the books. This one is so delicious and scrumptious. Like I said previously, I am not a huge banana fan, but this one was a hit. Everybody loves a good old berry cobbler, so now that is what we are making. I'm just going to begin with our dry ingredients first, so I'm just adding 1 cup of flour to this bowl, along with 2 tablespoons of sugar, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, and 1/4 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. Then you're just going to whisk these dry ingredients all together. Now we're going to be adding the rest of our ingredients to this bowl. So it's just 1 egg, 1/4 a cup of milk. I used whole milk, and 2 tablespoons of some canola oil. And then once again, I just stirred all of these ingredients together. You are going to notice that this dough is pretty firm, but don't worry, this is definitely how it's supposed to be. It is not supposed to be runny. It is supposed to be pretty thick. Over here to my berries, it is just 4 cups of frozen berries that are thawed and drained. If you want to use fresh berries, you certainly can do that, but if you do use frozen, just make sure you completely thaw them and drain them. So I just added 1 cup of sugar and 1/4 a cup of flour. Then you're just going to mix this all together. Over here to my crock pot, I'm just going to be spraying it with some of this nonstick spray. I choose to use avocado oil nonstick spray, but that's just what I have on hand. Anyways, I just added our cobbler crust, and now I'm just going to try to flatten it out to the best of my ability, trying to get it in all of the little crevices down there at the bottom. Trust me, it is not going to be perfect, and don't you worry. So right on top of that, I'm just going to be adding our berry mixture and cook this on high for about 2 to 3 hours. Here it is all cooked up. Unfortunately, I didn't get a clip of it in the crock pot, but I just paired this with some ice cream, and it does look super dark. My lighting was completely off. It was pretty late at night at that point, but this came out really good. Now we're making Crockpot pumpkin praline bread pudding. This is not the prettiest thing to look at, but holy smokes, this one is so good. To get us started off, I have my loaf of French bread right here. This is just basic French bread I got from Walmart. I'm just going to be chopping it up into little cubes just like this. Using day-old bread or a couple day-old bread is actually best for this recipe. The fresh stuff will still work, but day-old bread tends to work best. So now that everything is chopped up into cubes, I'm going to be putting it into this large bowl. Over here to my separate large bowl, I'm going to be adding 2 cups of this half and half in there, along with 1 can of pumpkin puree. It's the equivalent to about 15 ounces. You want to make sure this is pumpkin puree, not the pumpkin pie filling, just the pure pumpkin. Next, you're just going to be adding 3/4 cup of regular sugar, 3/4 cup of brown sugar. It could be light or dark brown sugar, doesn't matter, along with 4 eggs, and then 2 tablespoons of vanilla extract and 1 tablespoon of pumpkin pie spice. Pumpkin pie spice has so much flavor. I just love that spice, that seasoning. If you don't have pumpkin pie spice though, you could just make your own pumpkin pie spice, and I will have instructions how to do it in the description box below. But now I'm just going to whisk this all together, and of course you're going to see my little helper Brinley. My daughter was itching to help at this point, so I let her help me stir. Over here to my crock pot, as always, I'm going to be spraying it with some nonstick spray. Then I'm just going to be plopping our French bread cubes right in there. And then on top of that, I'm just going to be adding that yummy mixture that we just made up. And you'll see that it doesn't cover all of the French bread pieces, and that's totally fine, because what you're going to do is come in with a spoon and just mix everything together to make sure every piece of French bread gets coated in that yummy filling. And now you're just going to cover this and cook it on low for about 6 hours. This is definitely optional, but I love this praline sauce. It goes amazing on top of this bread pudding. So all it is in my saucepan, a 1/2 cup of butter, a 1/2 cup of half and half, a 1/2 cup of brown sugar, and you're just gonna have this on medium-low heat, and you're just gonna let that butter melt down and bring this up to a boil. Once this did start to boil, I did stir it pretty often, And now I'm just going to be adding our half a cup of chopped pecans, and I did turn my heat to low at this point, and I'm going to let this simmer together for about 5 minutes. Then I took this off the heat and I let it sit for an additional 5 minutes off of the heat. And here is our bread pudding. It does not look gorgeous, but holy smokes, like I said before, this is amazing. I just topped it with some powdered sugar to make it a little bit cuter, but this was so delicious, and I'm so excited about fall and pumpkin season. Now we're going to be making these peanut clusters. These are so simple, but yet they are just super easy. They're kind of like a classic. So into my crock pot, I'm just adding 1.5 cups of semi-sweet chocolate chips, along with 1 10-ounce bag of peanut butter chips and 1.5 tablespoons of coconut oil. Or you could use shortening if you prefer shortening, but I do prefer coconut oil for this recipe. I cook this on low and stirred it every 20 minutes until our chocolate chips were completely melted. Now that we have our chocolate chips and peanut butter chips all melted, I'm going to be adding our 2 cups of either salted or unsalted peanuts, whatever your preference is, and I just mixed this all together to make sure that chocolate coated the peanuts. Over here to my countertop, I'm just going to be adding some of this wax paper right down, and then on top of that wax paper, I'm going to be using my cookie scoop, and I'm scooping some of our peanut clusters on top, and I'm going to let this cool on my countertop for about an hour or 2, just until that chocolate sets. If you do want this to cool quicker, just go ahead and stick it into your refrigerator or even your freezer. Here are our peanut clusters completely set. These are just amazing, and they remind me of the holiday season just because I always make them around the holidays, but these are super delicious, plus they are so easy to make. They're a perfect little treat. And that is a wrap of all these Crockpot desserts. I hope you enjoyed them, and maybe you found a dessert that might fit your taste, but I hope you guys are all doing well. And I have been posting a lot of Crockpot recipes recently, so if you happen to miss any of them, I will link them down below in my description box. But as always, if you are new here, I would love to have you, so go ahead and subscribe down below the video. But I will see you in Sunday's video. Bye for now.